Marta Marello, who's a graduate student at BU, will talk about her Green Grease project, the Green Grease project that she's been involved in Brazil, working, again, waste collection from restaurants, about restaurant oil, turning that into biodiesel.
Hello everyone, my name is Marta, and today I will talk about the Green Grease project. Now, before getting into what the project is all about, I'd like to talk a little more deeply about who are the catadores in Brazil. What do they do? What's their activity? What's their environmental role? Now, in Brazil, waste pickers are called catadores. And evidence shows that they entered this job for two reasons. One, because they did have formal jobs before where they had to obey orders and follow a boss, but they were fiercely independent, and so that didn't work out. Or because they're poor and uneducated and they had no chance to enter the formal sector of jobs. And there are, generally speaking, the literature calls waste pickers as the informal sector of waste management. But there are a number of layers within this sector. The bottom layer is formed by the dump pickers, people who live in the dumps. They collect recyclables out of the dumps and then they resell it. But then you can also have street pickers who just go from household to household and they collect the valuable materials, maybe in exchange for money or for other goods, and then they resell it to middlemen. There are truck pickers, as Libby already mentioned, who take out valuable materials from the trucks or as the truck is being loaded. And then there are also service providers who typically we're only, as the name says, providing a service of taking the recyclables out. But in Brazil now they're starting also to recycling it and processing to a certain extent. So as you can see, it's like a very complex world itself, and then the way it is connected to other networks is much more complex, and I'm not gonna get there now. I want to precise that their waste picker catadores' income comes solely from the sale of recyclables to middlemen, and they do not earn enough money to break the poverty cycle. In Brazil, as Libby mentioned, they are the most organized so far around all the other waste pickers in the world, and they're so organized that there's like the literature talks about the Brazilian model, where cooperatives go from door to door, so they provide service and then they recycle the materials, and the door-to-door collection is very helpful because collecting at the source prevents the valuable materials from getting damaged, and so it's more valuable for them, and they can earn like higher income. And materials that they collect are metals, plastic, cooking oil, paper, Tetra Pak glass, a number of them. And catadores perform the initial stages of processing, like sorting, washing, compacting, baling, shredding. And as you can imagine, these are like great environmental services. I mean, these people are taking it, in order to live, they take out things that would end up in the landfill or things that they would be burned. And they're a great resource for the municipality indirectly. And the evidence shows that the informal sector of waste pickers collect much more than the formal sector, and it's also a much more sustainable system, because if the formal sector collects everything, the informal sector only collects what's valuable, so what can be resold and can pay for their livelihoods, basically. Now, a couple of things about why waste pickers organize into cooperatives. There's like basically one big reason. By organizing and working into cooperatives, waste pickers have better working conditions in terms of better income, because they can aggregate more volume, they can bargain a better price with the intermediate, with the middleman. Maybe they can form a network with other cooperatives to sell maybe one material together. And in Sao Paulo, Brazil, they do 7 or 8 cooperatives sell paper together. So this is already happening. And but it also another advantage, a big advantage, is like a better social status. So the bottom line is that the more organized, the less vulnerable waste pickers are from exploitation by either the intermediary or even the police or municipal workers. And in the case of Brazil, waste pickers started organizing into the 90s. The first meeting occurred in 1992 with waste pickers coming from all over Brazil. And in 2002, the Movimenta Nacional dos Catadores was formed, and they released like a carta dos catadores where basic values were included. That was really significant, and now I think the founder of the movement is like traveling all over the world to bring his experience to other cooperatives that maybe are less organized. So this is a picture of a cooperative called Ares in Salesópolis, which is close to Sao Paulo, Brazil. And you can see how people in cooperatives work. This is not a dump site, but people collect, catadores collect valuables from door to door, and then they bring into these sorting facilities, and then they sort it and they process it. Yeah, exactly, just like in the picture. Now, what's the other component of the project? The other component is cooking oil. In Brazil, fried food is very popular, and people do not know that are not aware of the environmental consequences of throwing cooking oil and just oil down the drain. It's a very common practice, unfortunately. And they don't know that 1 liter of oil can pollute up to 23 to 25,000 liters of water. And believe me, the waterways in Sao Paulo are very polluted. So what can be done with cooking oil? Cooking oil can be transformed into biodiesel with some processing. And second generation biodiesel eases also the pressure on soybean cultivation. As you probably know, Brazil produces a lot of biodiesel, 85% of which comes from soybean. And now soybeans are planted into this really biodiverse geographical area of Brazil called Cerrado, and that is becoming like a huge environmental problem, huge environmental issue. And biodiesel, and now biodiesel has to be mixed with traditional fuel for cars, both in Brazil and also Europe. There's a 5% minimum biodiesel and car fuels mix. This is I know that for Europe, this is part of like a strategy called 20-20-20, which involves like 20% greenhouse gases remission, 20% improvement of efficiency, and also a 20% minimum level of 20% of renewable energy, and parts of which has to be for transportation. So it has numerous consequences. So what is really green grease about? Well, from 2 problems, catadores not earning enough money and water pollution from oil, students at MIT, with the students from the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, designed and built a inexpensive, easy-to-use filtration system that removes food particles and water from cooking oil. This way of adding value to oil then allows them to sell it for like a higher price to the middleman and earn more money. So what are some of the accomplishments? In the summer of 2012, the team I was part of went to Sao Paulo, installed successfully filtration systems in 7 cooperatives, and we provided some training for how to use it. And immediately we've seen like an increased revenue from filtered oil. Like in certain cases, it almost doubled. It was really impressive. And now that catadores can see the value how the value can come from oil, they have an incentive to collect more with significant environmental benefits. And there's like one cooperative called Cora, where in conjunction with like I think an NGO or like the municipality, they did like a big public awareness campaign that went especially through kids, school children. They taught school children that cooking oil had to be saved, not put down the drain, and the collection doubled. So they went from something like 400 liters of oil per month to 800 liters of oil per month. So that plus the filtration system adding value, there was like a significant difference in revenue for them. And this is a picture of our team building a filtration system in Salisopolis. And these are all members, besides our team, these are all members from the cooperative. Now, what are some of the limitations? Because it all sounds great, but there are certain things that need to be taken care of. So for example, one is the legal requirement satisfaction to handle cooking oil. There are certain laws, and cooperatives unfortunately, they don't have the resources to buy certificates in order to be able to handle oil in cooperatives and things like that. So there's something, and some of these laws catadores are not even aware of some of these laws. So sometimes like the implementation of the filtration system is not really cost effective in the long term, either because they collect too much, so they cannot like run all the oil into the filtration system, because the filtration system takes like a little bit of time, or they don't collect enough oil, so that for them it's not worth to run through the filtration system and then sell it. And then we encountered like a political friction regarding oil network. I mentioned earlier that these 7 cooperatives are networked together in order to sell paper together. We were hoping to do the same thing with oil, but that didn't happen because of the political friction. The labor union didn't allow to build like a network that was separated from the national movement of catadores. And so we just had to step back and review that. And there's in certain places, the quantity of oil collected is very low. And there's no quality control. Quality is not consistent across the board, unfortunately. And now, I'm sorry. What can be done next? Well, one idea is like quality control over time and across cooperatives, so that if they were to sell the oil together, it could be like a guarantee for the buyer. And another way to increase value added could be to reduce acidity, and students at the University of São Paulo are currently working on that. Another way to improve the filtration system would be to increase its efficiency. We also looked at that. Some people are working on that. But the really big thing that we realized is to increase volume. Because despite the filtration system added value and did improve the life of waste pickers a little bit, now we realize that to really make a significant difference, we have to skip the middleman and sell directly to biodiesel processors. But in order to do that, you need to have the volume. And so the next step of the project will be to try to build a mini network to pilot this network among like only 2, 3, maybe 4 cooperatives, so that they can sell the oil together, just like they're doing with paper, and create the volume to skip the middleman. That would really make a difference. And then there are other things that can be done, like more public awareness campaign in other places where cooperatives are operating, and then increasing the capacity of the filtration system. Yeah, thank you.